This is the Weigh In Podcast by Ben Watt Chestnut and the occasional popping Sylvester Romero. On this week's Weigh In, we talk to you about UFC 327. If you didn't, if you didn't catch that one, well, we're gonna talk about it. Spoiler alert! We're gonna spoil what happened for y'all. But nonetheless, I thought that was a great event. I thought it was good because I always watch that UFC, but nonetheless, that is this week's weigh in. So if we jump right into this one on this UFC 327, we're gonna run you down what went on, and that was that Jaira Brzgaszka versus Carlos Uberg. And we're gonna start. That was the main event. We're gonna start these early prelims. So we had Chris Padilla and Markel Medosero, and it was a draw. That was a draw. 5 rounds draw. You don't see those much in UFC, but to see that, I mean, you kind of see it. It's a lot. It's more common in boxing. I think we see it a little more in boxing, but UFC fairly not so common. Now, right after that, we got Calvin Gastelum versus Vincent Vince Q UQ. That was a first round submission. You know what? This is another one like we talk about them names. We want to get this one right. So we're going to see, how does this one say? How does this one draw? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to see how this one draw, because I want to know for this one. I want to know. Let's see. Let's see what we got going on, y'all. Vicente Loque. There we go. Vicente Loque got the first round submission. We have Charles Racti versus Francisco Perdero. Charles was able to get the win by decision, 3 rounds. So that was the early prelims. We're going to get to the preliminary card now. The preliminary card. And we had Aaron Pico. If many of you remember Aaron Pico. All right. So if many of you don't know the Aaron Pico story, real good wrestler. We talked about this before, college wrestlers in the UFC. Well, Aaron Pico is like a Henry Cejudo almost. Aaron Pico never wrestled college. So he never wrestled college. He turned professional in MMA. He signed with Nike and Bellator MMA at the age of 17, making him ineligible for Colgate competition. So, he won a California state title and then that was where he won the state title, and then he was focusing on international wrestling. And now he's in MMA, now he's in the UFC. Pretty cool. So that's that quick Aaron Pico story for you. Many of you don't know Aaron Pico. Good. Aaron Pico gets after. I love to always see Aaron Pico. I really like that fight for Aaron Pico. I thought that was a great fight put on for Aaron Pico. I really liked it because Aaron Pico's, more than most, I like to see all the wrestlers that go to UFC, or mostly I have UFC favorites that are not wrestlers, that were not college wrestlers, or Aaron Pico international wrestlers, or high school wrestlers that go to MMA, or like Henry Cejudo, Olympic champions. I really do have a really great set of athletes that I like to see, and Aaron Pico is one of them because they always. It's always great to see wrestlers get into the octagon, because first and foremost, I love to see the fact that there's all those the other opponents always thinking, "Oh, I'm going to take you down, man. I'm going to take you down," and it never happens. hence why I think, there are very good times where it does not happen. But I think that's why so many wrestlers who go to MMA, they thrive. They thrive because of being able to, the fact of that they have mastered wrestling. Anybody who gets a state title in wrestling and then goes over to MMA, hey, you've mastered wrestling. You're a state champ. Now, in Henry Cejudo's sake, you've mastered it at the Olympic level, which for wrestling at Henry's time was the highest form to master it at. Or if you got an NCAA title, that's another high form, Division I NCAA title. That's another high form to say you've mastered wrestling. And really in that is just, it's great to say you've mastered high forms of wrestling. Now, nowadays you've got Claw out there, you've got Real American Freestyle out there, where there are higher forms to really master. And for UFC, it has now evolved too, because you used to be at a back in the day only get one belt. Now you can hold two belts in two separate weight classes and be a champ. So we got a lot of, I really say a lot of evolution in terms of UFC, in terms of just athletics in general. A lot of evolution. So they're followed up by Aaron Pico. Well, you know what? Let's let me see. Let's go from the bottom. We'll talk about, we had Tatiana Suarez submit Lupi Golines in the second round. Hey, you love to see it. Then after that, you follow that up by Martínez Gamrot versus Esteban Rodriguez. Gamrot submit Esteban. So you go 2 back-to-back submissions. You love it. Then after that, that was followed by Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown, and Kevin Holland got the decision in the third round. He got a decision, a normal decision. Excuse me, my bad. Normal decision. Then that was followed up by that Aaron Pico, Patricio Pitbull. And that was the Patricio Pitbull and Aaron Pico. Pico won by decision. So that's if we're moving right on along. Now we get to this main card for y'all. I think, and you know what? We talked about this. I broke this card down before. Talked about Josh Hockett, Paul Acosta. Dominic Reyes was fighting. So it's some good names up there. Some solid names. So we'll start at the bottom. We had Cub Swanson and Nate Landwehr. Cub Swanson won by KO, TKO, round 1. You had Dominic Reyes versus Johnny Walker. Dominic Reyes won by decision. And that was a light heavyweight bout for Dominic Reyes. You had a heavyweight bout between Josh Hockett and Curtis Blades. And it was Josh Hockett that got the win by decision. Now, the light heavyweight, which everybody, the co-main, this is one that I really liked. And that was that Paul Acosta versus Emma Matt. You know what? We're gonna figure out how to say this one too, because this is another really good name that I wanna kind of get this one correct. And for that exact reason, I want to get it correct. You guys already know I like getting them correct. So I like getting most names that I can correct. Y'all already know I always like doing that. I always like getting most of these names I can correct the best way. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can get you an accurate translation of how to say this name. Azimov Murzakanov. There we go. Azimov Murzakanov. Warriors. Agramov Murzakanov versus Paul Acosta. Paul Acosta won. Agramov is, I believe, now is 16-1. I believe now he might have. I will double check that for y'all because now I believe he's 16-1 now. Whether he was before or not, either way, we're gonna He's 37 years old, Agramov. Wow, he fights pretty good for 37. That's pretty cool for 37. That's pretty good. You know, a lot of these guys are really good at what they can do. Yeah. So now he has one loss. His O was snatched. Um, as we like to say from boxing, like snatching O's. His O was snatched. So that's that. Um, and that was a good one. And then you had, you know what? I'm gonna want to say this Jaira and versus Carlos Uberg. I want to know how to say this. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one through the translate too. We're gonna translate this one too, so I know how to say it. Yehi Prohaska. Yehi Prohaska. Yuri Prochaskov. Yuri Prochaskov. There we go. Yuri Prochaskov. There we go. Versus Carlos. You know what? I want to know how to say Carlos too. Carlos's last name because it's like a Uberg, something like that. So we're gonna go ahead and translate. We're gonna go ahead and translate Los too real quick. Uberg. Alberg. Carlos Alberg. Uberg is the Uberg. Carlos Uberg. So Carlos Uberg won by KO, TKO, and that was the main event. When you talk about events like these, you talk about they did not disappoint. So let's go through how many big stop finishes did we get? Let's go through. So if we go to the early prelims, we had a decision and we had a submission, and then we had that draw. So we really just it doesn't side no way. So we had an early submission right off the bat, one submission. Then we had two more submissions. So right off the bat, now we're at three. Now you talk about we had two more TKOs and then another TKO. We're talking six. So you talk about in terms of this, six were finishes. Six were finishes. So let's see how many fights was on the card here. Do 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 do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 cards, six of them were by finish. So that's like I told you, I said this before. I'm okay with it being split down the middle like that, where you get half finishes, half decision, where it's like that, half finishes, half decision. I kind of I'm okay with that because you kind of get a little bit of both. And the reason why you get a little bit of both is because you have some that finishes and some that are kind of like not really. So it's a really good partake for those that understand. It's a really good partake more than most. So minimalistic here, I like it. I like it a lot. But nonetheless, that's really good stuff. You can't the best of the best you can get here is what we're talking about because this is really you don't get events like these where they're that good. It was Paul Acosta had a good fight. You know, I mean, no fight gets better than KO TKO. Somebody, you really don't get no better than that. And when I say that, you really don't. In terms of that, and that was what I wanted to say. I really like the co-main and main event because both of those were knockouts. I love, TKO knockouts. I love all that. So that's just my partake is that I always love to see all that stuff. Like for me, it's like I love UFC. It's great things. It's all good. It's all good. And for me, I absolutely love to see that stuff because it brings It brings everything the way it's supposed to. It brings everything. It brings so much. That's just one thing that I've always got to is that. So for me, I like the card, but I know there wasn't. That for me, that's what I liked. But nonetheless, that's just me, and that's just how I felt about it. But and it looked like it looked like if we're gonna dive into these ticket sales, huh? Hmm. So one of the first most things we're going to talk about is I think we talked about if we haven't we will now that in the Paulo Costa versus Amarat um you talk about in the Paulo Costa versus Amarat you talk about with for that event that the people don't understand how dangerous the head kick is. Like if it's right, I, you really should have learned this from Leon Edwards when he got it done um all that time ago that that was a good that's a good way to go about it, but you don't see much of that. The head kick is very dangerous, and if you get it right, it's especially when you're tired too. When you're tired, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. That's just how it is when you're tired. It's just anything well, you know and when we talk about our Los, when we talk about Los, we talk about that was a textbook finish. That was a textbook left hook that got in there. I bring that up because as you guys know, I watch so much UFC. Sometimes I watch a lot of that stuff. And sometimes I gotta kind of always refresh myself. But yeah, I thought between those two in the co-main and main that I thought those were really well. I really did. I think in terms of getting an event that you have it that way, I think that was like now I do know that people said a lot about there not being something with the ticket sales of UFC 327 that it wasn't a lot of people, but we're gonna see we're gonna see if we can find something on all that, for you guys that because I don't understand why they would go say something like that. Oh yeah, yeah, yes. So here's what we got for you: UFC 327 held at Miami Kazuaka Center featured a reported 6,000. You heard me correct. 6,000 unsold tickets. The event struggled with high ticket prices and a perceived weak fight card. Listen, you called it a weak fight card. Well, I guess that's why I guess they call it weak because there was six fights were finished. Were finished. by TKO or submission. 6 fights were of a finish. And they had 6,000 unsold tickets. So that tells you that is an interesting, that is an interesting connotation to what happened there. I lately we've been giving Dana White a lot of credit, and I always like to give Dana White credit because the fight business ain't easy. I'm not in that business, but I know it from what the fans standpoint. It does not look easy for how many fights fail that you put on an event and you have 6,000 unsold tickets. Well, I'm not trying to take away from any guy that was in the main event. The gyro, and you got to line these cards up with really big, like, all right, you lined up Paul Costa. I'll give you that. Paul Costa was a good, I like the structure, but you got to have like a star out front of these UFC events. It's kind of like in boxing. You'll never see a boxer as the main event till they're the it guy. They're that guy. They're the guy that's gonna win some belts. As of right now, you barely see as you know, they didn't sell that out. 6,000 unsold tickets, and they say because of high ticket pricing. When you have the right amount of boxers, will always do what they got to do. Like I say, they will do what they have to do. A boxer will sell his tickets. I've never seen a UFC issue. Maybe there's a bigger story here. And maybe we might be able to figure it out. I don't know. I can't seem to find what would have caused nobody to. And they say it was high ticket prices, but I'm trying to think. There was. Well, we had a fight with Tyson Fury, and they say Conor Benz was involved in the possible event. So, is it possible more of the people wanted to go to that boxing? It possibly is. It possibly is that boxing could have played a role into it. I understand they're in two separate locations and even countries, but never underestimate the power of boxing right now. People love their boxing. People love their boxing. Now, hold on now. So, Conor Benz is on Zuffer Boxing. So Dana's doing something right. So I did not keep up with my boxing like I should have. I'm just letting you know that right now. I did not keep up with my boxing this weekend because I was on with that UFC because I wanted to see Aaron Pico, I wanted to see Paul Acosta, and all of that, and I did not keep up with all that stuff. Obviously Conor Benz won that fight, but Conor Ben, I keep saying Benz, my bad. Conor Ben, won that fight. I didn't really watch that event. I'll probably watch that at a later date. That's normally what I do. I watch it after the fact. Typically because That's just, it wasn't. I mean, Conor Ben, he's a good boxer, but I'm gonna be honest, he's not on my list of keeping up with it, but he's starting to, because the potential clashing he could have is gonna be really good. It's gonna be really good. They say so. Let's see, because we talked about Conor Ben's and Zuffer boxing. Now, I don't see anywhere else. I don't really think. I don't really know if there's any truth to that. So we're gonna. I'm gonna get that for you. Okay, so he has a one fight deal with Zuffer Boxing. It is true. He's got a one fight Zuffer Boxing deal. So it wonders if he'll stick with Eddie. What's going to happen in between, because it's a one fight deal. And apparently, Eddie Hearn only found out from an email. Man, you didn't even. So Conor Ben didn't even have the decency to tell Eddie himself and say, "Hey, this is kind of it." He told him in an email. In an email. Y'all think about that for a second. In an email from the lawyer too. Not even Ben himself. Not even Conor himself. From the lawyer. Okay. Now that we've all thought about that, is that the way you do your promoter who promoted you for 10 years? Hmm. We're loyalty nowadays, huh? Loyalty, loyalty, loyalty. We talk about it. Loyalty. The same way on wrestling epis, we see some of these clubs talk about, stop club hopping, which is you go to a club for a couple months and you hop. Um, Notably, something that widely circulated thing, given the facts of what decisions what's that Yale Street, the Yale Street owner had made on is that he had done something that I 100% agreed with, but never really talked about on the pod. He ended the free trial because it was I I would not take what it seemed like was there were kids that would just come in, do a free trial, wrestle kids from his club, and then be like, okay, I just want to get a good look before state. It's the same thing. You want to get with a really good promoter, and then you're with Tough for Boxing. Like, okay, I'm with Tough. I understand that's hard to, gather that he didn't promote or hop like crazy, but it kind of is like you were with one promoter for 10 years and now you leave him. I get it. We all know about I won't speak to any one situation, but we all know the Oscar de la Hoya. That's all I'm gonna say. And Golden Boy. I'm not saying they've done anything wrong. I'm just saying every fighter's got their different views. That's just what I'm saying. And I'm just saying everything's a little different. As midst as how shaky they were with King Ryan. Now it seems like now they're good. You would want to think, but nonetheless, that's all I got for you. We are in the end of the epi today. I know, right? We're in the end of the epi. But nonetheless, like, comment, subscribe, share. I keep putting these on. I'm trying to better these pods for you guys. I am trying to better these pods for you guys. I'm working on a different model for bettering the pods because last time we changed model, we just whole thing. So we're working on a better model where these will be better, cooler, clear. That's the way to go. But we're working on all of that. That'll be really good. That's in the works. But nonetheless, I just want to say like, comment, subscribe, and share. If I didn't already say that, I'm saying it now because you get on me when I don't. So this is The Weigh-In by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sylvester Romero. And that's all I really have for you on this episode. Weigh-In out.